rattled me was where I think advertising has lost its way. I've got 5 points here. The first one being is that creativity has been replaced with metrics. So a lot of this Google ads, like I did some Google ads stuff, just intermittently. And as I was doing it, I was like, this is just pressing buttons, selecting audiences, and this doesn't feel like advertising to me. Look, I get it. I get how it works, and I get the behavioral mechanisms underlying all this. But it's like, this is not a propaganda poster. This is not Uncle Sam wanting you. This is data science. Sure, you can get creative within the metrics, but I think that when you spoke before about this art versus science, I actually think this all comes back to art. And I think science is just the engineering team that help bring that art to life.
I was just reading the impact of AI on the law and
Yes.
Case law in particular. AI surfacing incorrect. Can't remember what they call it in legal terms. You're basically making
Legalese.
case reference. Yeah, okay. And AI has just been making it up. So that's an interesting one. And I've been writing a lot of code in chat for the website I've redeveloped.
You're actually doing the website?
Yeah, so they give us the CSS installed into the sort of the CMS, content management system. But I got to build out the content, and the CMS is super flexible, but also therefore not super easy to use until you've set a few things up. So yeah, I've just been using chat to create like accordion menus and clean the code up, or do anything fancy of any degree.
So your job title, it's brand and marketing manager, right? Or comms?
Yeah, it always confuses people, I think.
This is like you're sort of stepping on a lot of people's toes here. It's exciting.
And this is like friendship bridges.
This is like the beautiful thing about what we're celebrating here, this beyond obsolescence, is like, no, like individuals are becoming way more empowered.
Definitely, it is a new space, but I've always sort of done that stupidly or unstupidly. Like more, I call myself a cut paste of code, but where I've had to, I've always done that. If something needed doing, have a go at it before getting someone else to have a go at it and wreck it first, and then ask someone else to fix it. Is usually my motto.
Does that help you understand like the shape of how all these things have to fit together?
I'd love to say so, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just an idiot under the hood, pulling the cords off the distributor and off the spark plugs and pouring oil in the water.
I think it takes a smart person to be a tinkerer, because curiosity is the highest form of intelligence. I believe.
Doing interesting things like the CMS doesn't give me access to do a favicon in the right place.
Yep.
So that's the little icon in the top right-hand corner on a browser. So I wrote a bit of code and put that into a header that appears across every single page as a bit of hidden code to then force it in. I think I used or a website chat recommended to create the favicon icon file, because it doesn't. You couldn't use just a plain old PNG the right size, could you? It had to be another file type.
Well, just to interrupt you there, is this going to that? Is this talking about that time compression thing we spoke about for a couple of weeks ago, where instead of you, the individual, having less work and more time and more freedom, you've got more job roles, more responsibilities, and more things that you're doing. So you actually not eliminated things. You've been given more stuff to do.
Yeah. Well, it costs the organisation less, I guess, in a way, and I'm doing it just as quick, or if not quicker, because you don't have to do it back and forth. I don't have to go, Mr. Programmer, Mr. Designer, or Mr. Developer. Can you just shift that over there, make it look like this, or try this and try that? Don't like that. I'm just going to revert it. could you revert it? It's kind of instantly done because I can do it there and then. Not to
Yeah.
say that I'm very good at it, but the more I build it out, it becomes like templates, which I can just move from page to page or copy pages. So
Yeah.
internally, it's kind of you build the page, the header and the footer stay the same, but you've got to keep adjusting it. But I even put it didn't really have a space for Google Analytics, or nobody had explained where it existed in the CMS. But I asked Chat or Google, and it said, open up here, and you'll find this menu here, and you can stick your analytic code in here. So I managed to do that. Didn't even lose probably less than half a day of Google Analytics data. Which is always fun in a website changeover. In the past, it used to be a bit of a struggle, but just dropping it in myself and making sure it was done.
I think where this goes next, which is going to be wild, is when the site that you're doing doesn't even need to exist. So there's no developers, no designers. I don't know what the interface would look like, but we might just all have personal assistants. We just say, I need this. And we'll say, you need to buy this product. And there's a little button that pops up and says buy. And say, well, tell me about this insurance product. Or here's a description from the PDS. And then you say, well, match this to, my finances, my family. Match to the best products. And they say, this is the best product for you on this, this, and this. You just click buy, done.
Well, which is enough, I am worried about that large language model. It has meta tags, but what's the thing to force this into the LLMs? If it's to surface anything about advocacy in Tasmanian farming, how's it going to appear?
I had a look at this a while ago because I asked this SEO company. I needed to outsource something to them, and I said, how do I get SEO working on ChatGPT? Like, I think it's called like AIEO or something to that effect. They had no idea. Meanwhile, they're trying to upsell me on SEO, AdWords, and so on. And so I did a little bit of research. Well, research, quote unquote. If ever I say research, it just means I've used ChatGPT and wrote one question. That's my research now. And what it came up on there is what the LLMs are looking for. Now, this could be wrong, and it could have just hallucinated this, or I could have just made a mistake in my understanding. But it's looking for context. It's looking for not just like meta tags or like sort of labels. It's looking for the context of what's written. So I guess it's more of probably trying to look at it through more of a human narrative lens rather than just okay, you've mentioned this keyword, and this keyword. You've linked to this site, and this site. Then that sort of raises the value and the validity of this information. So that's my understanding so far of how it works, but who knows how this is going to eventuate. I think they have to get like the interface right, because like the chat interface it's good for some things, but for things that are visual, for things that are like visceral, like an insurance product, let's say health insurance. Yeah, it's a pretty dry industry, but people come at it through an emotional lens. And so if you're just presenting this stuff without making that human connection and it's just text and, sort of value matching, I don't know if that's the best modality to sell health insurance products. That's where you need those lovely, dovey pictures and so on. So who knows where it evolves? Which is actually, sorry, it's a good segue. We'll talk about it a bit later, but I actually want to talk about advertising tonight.
No, go. What's happening in advertising? Are you working on something in advertising?
Well, before we jump into the main topic, I wanted to just go over what I've been sort of tinkering with this week. So here in my lovely shed,
in the lab,
I had the lab. I've got this VR headset. This one here. This is Oculus Quest 2. It's about 4 or 5 years old. I bought it for about $400. Can't buy them anymore. Can't even get them secondhand. I originally bought it and I thought, I'm going to change the world, or I'm going to jump into the matrix, whatever. Put it on, you play a few games, you look off the top of a few high buildings and get scared a bit, then like 3D movies, the novelty concept wears off. So I've just been sitting around here in a box, not doing anything. I decided to get it out and just plug it in, charge it, see if it still works. And I left it here on my desk. And my son, my 3-year-old son, he came in and goes, "What's this, Papa?" And so he picked it up. He instantly knew how to put it on his head and put the straps on. This is a 3-year-old, by the way, who has, yeah, he's around technology in our household, but he has no concept of preconception of what VR is. But he just looked at it and he instantly understood that, okay, this goes over your eyes and the strap's on. So I was like, oh, what the hell, you know? Everyone's saying, don't get your child, well, don't give your children phones until they're like teenagers. Screen time, blah blah blah, blah blah blah. And I was like, well, what's the opposite of that? Let's put a screen on their eyeballs that completely disconnects the entire world around them and immerse them in and see what happens. So that's what happens.
Why not go the other way? Disregard the advice.
Yeah, well, let's go counter. Let's just challenge. They're probably right, and they probably will turn out to be right. But let's at least challenge the assumptions first before we, say no, you can't do that. So put it on, and it's really cool if you haven't done it. But all the menus are in like this immersive 3D world. So you've got your own sort of like virtual, following like the parlance of Ready Player One. You're like in the Oasis. There's like all these things around you, all these other people, these buildings. It's all sci-fi and utopian. Put it on, and he was like wowed straight away. He's like he knew what to do. He was moving around, and what was really interesting about seeing him in it is because there's no interfaces, as you would think of. Okay, well, you go up to the top, click on File, go down to New Window. No context menus. It was just like everything is, spatial and using your hands as your input. Because you don't use controllers, you can use your hands and your fingers to grab things and press buttons. And he instantly knew. So
you're not using the joysticks on that one? It's doing hand recognition?
Yeah, it does hand tracking. So I can see, like, you've got virtual hands that mirror what your own hands, and like all the digits work.
So that was doing that before, even before Apple was doing.
Yeah, this like goes back about 5 or 6 years, and it's incredible. So it's really interesting to see like a child stepping into the world, and what's been eye-opening for me, because he was doing it today. I was sort of watching back and just observing what he was doing. And to him, I'm thinking that what I've just presented him is natural. Like he's not coming at this as this is a new technology. He's coming at it as, oh, yeah, in our house, we just have this thing that takes you to this different parallel dimension, and that's normal. And then you just go around and play in it. So what I've noticed from this is that this world feels natural to him, but still quite foreign to, like, I'm not speaking for you, but still quite foreign to us adults. But what I've noticed is that like he had no fear of machines, no apprehension, no, oh, what's this going to do? It's just straight on and in it. And I think this is it's probably going to be really exciting to see how like this current generation, like let's say, up to 10 years old, go forward with this when AI is normal, when prompting is a second language. And as he was playing, I was watching him. He was like in this kitchen. This is one video game called Job Simulator, and he was in a kitchen as a chef.
In a kitchen. Okay, I think I have seen this one. Yeah,
that's an old one. That's about 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah.
But he was in there as a chef, and he was like trying to cook stuff, and he was like breaking things and just pulling stuff out of the fridge and throwing them. But to him, it's real, and the experience is real. But then I thought, well, there's probably many layers you can add to this, because there's that the whole notion that learning, the best sort of learning is through play. Like when I'm having fun with something, when something feels like a game, that's when I learn the most. And so it's like, well, how do you marry this sort of stuff where he's having fun, he's in this environment, throwing things and, causing chaos.
Yeah.
But then you add an element of like tuition in a fun kind of way. Because a lot of learning is, sit at the desk, put your school uniform on, pull your socks up, tuck your shirt in, look at the board, listen to the teacher. Don't color outside the lines, write this, get an A, go home. And what happens if like this learning becomes hey, you need to stand up and go grab that thing, stack it over there and see what happens. And all of these are sort of other meta layers to it. Suddenly like learning isn't just a static sit down, shut up. It is hey, it's like moving from A to B and seeing what happens. Or just going and picking up a rock and seeing what's underneath. I think that's really cool. So I think also like another layer to add to this is that like, is there like an AI anxiety that can come around with this stuff with parents feeling like they get replaced? If the kid can prompt this infinite oracle, if they can have access to the best AI teachers and they have experiences that far surpass you saving up your 2 weeks a year of annual leave to fly over to Disneyland and they can just do it instantly, where do parents sit in this? So that's what I've been tinkering with.
There was a psychologist, I can't remember his first name, Harry Harlow it might have been, and he did an experiment with, it's always with apes or monkeys, and it was like doing a test. He gave one a soft toy and replaced the mother, and another actually had their mother, and they found the one that actually had the mother was basically more supported and more confident and outgoing and less traumatized by the whole thing, whereas the one that was given a toy to replace the mother was quite traumatized, unconfident, and clung to it.
Yeah.
But with the social media, ban, and as you said, what's the impact of these things going to be on the kids? I wonder what's going to happen. There's been a whole generation, and I read an article where they talked about being a generation that have actually been exposed and they're about to have it taken away from them. I think they described it as the dopamine hit's going to be taken away from them. I think that's going to be interesting because that's also the generation that was probably stuck at home for a long period of time during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And was their education was massively impacted by COVID. And I reckon they were interacting on social platforms and stuff. And then suddenly our government's going to ban it. And how much of that is for the benefit of the government versus the benefit of the child? I get there are aspects of social media that are bad, and there are bad ways to use social media. But, I think they've taken the lazy stick, legislative, regulatory stick to the problem. But, given that, it's probably the easiest way when we talk about things like roadblocks.
What do you think is going to happen?
What
do you think? Yeah.
Crystal ball.
Yeah, if you just were to have a wild guess, what do you think is going to happen with the ban social media?
Straight up, there's going to be a lot of angry kids. Do you ever remember seeing like the kid who throws his, has an absolute tantrum when his Nintendo gets taken off him? It was a bit of a classic on.
I can imagine it.
Like social media, or the dad took away or did something to his TV and he chucks the crap. So I think that's what families are going to face. They're going to face angry young kids who are bored, can't get their dopamine hit, don't know what to do with themselves. But I think that will quickly be adapted into them adapting and getting workarounds, finding other platforms. So I think the government probably is on a hiding to nothing with a certain age.
I think it's going to bring about. Sorry, I think it's going to bring about like another new drug dealer will come to town.
Yep.
It'll probably manifest something much darker. Yep.
Yeah, which just exposes them to darker things.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sound doom and gloomy, but that's the bigger risk, isn't it? Exposing them to darker things because they got to get it off their local social media dealer. New term.
That's an interesting concept.
Social media dealer.
Yeah, well, dopamine's the new drug of choice, I guess.
What do you think's going to happen?
what I love about, well, it's not love, but it's I'm fascinated to see the second and third order effects, because we're talking about, exponentials here. When you sort of think, okay, well, it seems obvious, this thing's bad, let's ban it. But then it's like the whole, well, like think about the prohibition era, when alcohol was outlawed. Then that gave rise to crime, mafia bosses, and uh, it just fueled crime even more so. People were still drinking, but it now just created this, this criminal ecosystem around it, which was far worse than the initial problem, which then eventually let go of prohibition. Um, I think it takes a genius to sort of anticipate what second and third order effects can look like, because it's like predicting the weather. Sure, you can look at a couple of clouds and think it's going to rain, but when you see like this butterfly effects, this chain reaction of all these particles and atoms in the atmosphere that all colliding and then eventuates to a rainy day, it's really hard to model that. And so I think people are the same. I think it's really hard to model people when they're dealing with systems, because there are so many variabilities. I think in hindsight, it's really easy to look back on and say, oh, of course this happened because of this, this, and this. I think you have to be cautious in doing black and white ruling. So you could say, well, are they better off to be totally absorbed in this social network and deal with the consequences for those who can't deal with it, or do we just put a blanket ban? But then, the genie's out of the bottle. They've got a taste of the drug, and as you said, now where are they going to go to next? I don't know what will happen, but I think no one can ever know. So I think you just have to take that chance. If it sounds right, even at a basic level, then maybe that's what you can do. Maybe you can just go in with best intent, but as long as you have the mechanisms and the checks and balances along the way to say, hey, okay, well, this is going really bad, let's shift gears and turn it back. I think that's important to have that awareness and not to be. Well, the thing about bureaucracy is they're quite stubborn and locked in. Once a bill passes or legislation passes, it doesn't get undone. Not straight away. So we'll see. But we're also assuming that people aren't going to make their own choices. Like I got rid of Instagram for the millionth time off my phone because, again, like that addict chasing the dragon. Oh, I'm off it. I'm sober now. Sober. I've been
How do
sober
you
for
get off
80.
ChatGPT?
I've been 81 days sober off Insta. But then it's like, oh, someone sent me a message on Insta. Well, you know what? I don't have Insta. I better download it just to read that message.
Was that
No.
me? Sorry.
Oh, did you send me something? Well, I haven't
I
read it
don't know.
because I'm sober now. But then I read it and it's like, okay, it's on my phone. Oh, you know what? I'm just gonna have a quick look, browse. Oh, I like that. Browse. I don't like that. Don't like that. And eventually, you're stuck back into it. So
There's
who
a good
knows?
7-step program with Instagram Anonymous.
Do you know that would actually probably be a funny thing to start just as a joke? But I think it would be. I think it would get legitimized very, very quickly. You'd probably get government funding support, and you would be like on Time magazine.
We could get funding for people to drive around and go to visit schools and
That's actually not a bad idea. Social media
small
rehab.
groups and
I
halls.
actually think you'd be surprised how many people would attend that, because people can recognize. We're at the point now where people can recognize the addiction, and some people just want out. But
Hi,
it's,
my
it's
name's
just,
Grayson, and I love putting up my photos of my holidays. It's a good business model. I like it.
do you know what? We should have put up a fake ad on Insta and see how many people we can get to sign up.
Um,
Sales.
I haven't seen Sora 2, but I'm almost recovered enough to have a crack at Sora 1, put a few frames together and stitch it together for Instagram Anonymous. It feels like that the Gruen Show challenge. I think we should pencil that in, because a lot of the work I'm doing, I'm finding the stuff that we did, the kind of the prompting and the vibe coding and stuff, has really come in handy.
Yeah, I
Really,
know.
really
We've
coming in
learned a
handy.
language.
Oh, look, I'm not saying I'm really any good at it. I probably should study actual prompt engineering or whatever they're calling it these days. But yeah, no, it's really
You're already
been
doing
a
it.
handy
You're doing it.
process.
You're doing it through philosophy.
I
That's
did
that's
actually
prompt engineering.
hit a couple of times where it would do something, and I'm like, this reminds me of when I was doing something for an app, and I had to ask it to look at it again or from a different angle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Apparently, there's something called Bootstrap 5, and the software we're running was Bootstrap 4, and after 3 or 4 prompts, I managed to figure it out and go, "Oh, you're running this, not that." It gave me the
Mm-hmm.
correct code. But only because I've done that vibe coding had I realised that it needed another opportunity to look at it and fix it and ask it to run it again. And it kind of, go back 6 prompts and recopy the code, because that's the code it had working 6 prompts ago. It's
Mm-hmm.
made so many changes and shitty changes. And then it's almost going, "Oh, sorry. Sorry, I know you're frustrated. Oh, sorry. Let me fix it again."
Yeah.
So it's only because we did that vibe coding that I was like, I need to go back to the prompt that was working and start a new conversation, or just use that code
Yeah.
and make different or more minor modifications. Very interesting. I was actually trying to integrate, if you hit a Splash, the free Unsplash.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's stock image site.
Stock image site. You can get API keys for the backend, and in our current or previous CMS, it was built in. It was like a little widget. So I took it upon myself to start building a widget for this new CMS
Yes.
where there is nowhere I can actually stick a widget in, but I was managing to build in HTML into a web page because I could access the HTML code, and build out a similar widget functionality. I did hit some roadblocks, and I wasted half a morning of work time doing that.
Wasted or discovered?
I know I probably did learn a lot. I'm actually still using the tool, but for example, if you click on an image and get it to I was hoping it would download and at the same time put it into the CMS image file management system. And chat said, I can do that. No, it couldn't. There were too many restrictions within the CMS for it to actually be able to do it. But I think chat's getting smarter too on the vibe coding. I've noticed it goes, you could go option 1, 2, or 3. Option 3 is unlikely to work. We can have a go at it. Option 1's the safest one. Option 2 is the expert level. But therefore I wouldn't recommend it for you. So, chat, I think between our last prototyping has got a little bit smarter.
Yeah. Well,
Interestingly,
that 5.1's out now, so it's a bit better. But when I say a bit better, we've got really high expectations and standards now for what it should be, because like from 3 years ago, it's godlike.
Yeah. But to your point, it doesn't have any imagery, does it? It doesn't in any way integrate imagery into the chat.
No, I'm not sure.
Which is interesting.
Well, what I wanted to segue into today was, this is something that I know that you and I are so close to, and so we love it so dearly, and this is the world of advertising.
Yeah.
I have a love-hate relationship with advertising. I used to love doing it. I used to love producing commercials, and I used to love doing the creative. And I used to hate watching ads. And it's a real dichotomy when you're doing these TV commercials and you're like, oh, I love this. This looks so cool. It's great. And then I'd be sitting in somewhere like Morty's, and be sitting in that bullpen in the middle on one of those tables, and then the TV's in the corner, and I'd see my ad pop up, and I'd be like, ugh, ads. And it's like, so I've always had a love-hate relationship with them. What about yourself?
And visually it's exciting to come up with a sort of a short story in a way, isn't it? And put whatever it is you're trying to promote into that 30-second or 15-second within the parameter of that length of message. And the thing I used to love about branding was some sort of consistency or connection between different mediums. So the story for the key things for the story were the same in the radio as they were in the TV, as they were in the newspaper, whether that was visually or through language. There's a real code. There's a real code to it, and it's art and science. You know, you need a good call to action. You need a good brand story, but the brand story comes about through creative artwork. But there's also frameworks that can help you develop your tagline and your elevator pitch and that sort of thing. And I loved mostly having to do it on the job and learn it on the job. I think my favourite one was the snug ad that you and I did career wise. If I had to look back through the many done, I think it's just because we got to work with some good creatives on that one. But my favourite ad of yours has always got to be, I think it was Burger Got Soul. That's probably one of my favourites. But I used to be a diehard for Super Bowl, and just getting my head around how many millions the Americans would spend on a 30-second ad just blew me away, you know, and the production quality, the cinematic movie expense for 30 seconds, you know, the use of celebrities, or, you know, a quirky story, you know, a chimp banging a drum to the sound of Phil Collins, or there's something about those, but we can't force an audience to watch an ad anymore the way we used to. And in fact, I think our audiences avoid ads now. I
They've
mean,
got a dirty word, advertising.
I put my phone down with YouTube if something's forcing me to watch it, or that comes up on the screen on the computer. I'll turn away and do something else for 30 seconds. I can't do it. Having made them and produced them, or overseeing them as a project manager or whatever, as a marketing manager, I'm the worst consumer.
But from the other side of
criticizing it or ignoring it.
Well, from the other side of the velvet rope, behind the scenes, it's actually really very hard to create like ads, because you've got this product with these features or service, and then you've got to try and distill that into something that can fit in a 30-second window or 15-second. Even social media, it's like 3 seconds. You've got to fit that entire, and you've got to translate the soul of this product and service through words, through visuals, through sounds, narration. So then when it sort of hits someone's TV and it sort of bounces out, hits their brain, and then spins around in there, that they get that aha moment. It's like, oh, yes, that. And that's like, I'm sure that you know this better than I do. It's that it takes a lot of work to simplify to that very narrow message, because what people like, when we have to justify this to boards and execs and stakeholders, they don't see the thousands of iterations of, oh, let's try this way. No, that looks shit. Oh, no, that doesn't, that's off brand, or that is the wrong message. That's the wrong audience. That's the wrong color. That color says sadness. And we want to say sympathy. And so you get into all these tiny nuances of, okay, what does a word mean? How does that word translate as a language? So it's a really technical craft.
And then
I used to actually think
it'll have expectations, and it'll have boundaries. They won't want a funny ad. They'll want a serious ad for their business, or, you know, they'll want the quirky ad, or they won't want the or they only slightly want the quirky ad. They don't want to go full blown on it. Like, I couldn't have a woman in a shower. That would be going too far for a certain organisation. It was too far. You know, it's like, it was like you want something that's different. Let's do kind of the horror film, you know, a cliche horror film type thing with a person in a shower. Oh no, you couldn't do that. It's too potentially sexually whatever.
And that's that other variable you got to add into this is personal preference. So you might have that CEO sitting in a chair. It's like, no, I don't like that. Why? just don't.
I just don't. Yeah,
And at the end of the day, they sign the checks.
or
And so there's all these
before
competing interests that have to align.
before the gay marriage debate, um, I, I had a creative go, "Oh, let's put two blokes in the bed," and it's like I'm working with a conservative organisation. Let me get some advice on that,
And
on
then
how some of the
it's
internal
funny how
stakeholders
far
might
the
feel.
tables have turned now, because now it's like it's a token image to throw. Okay, we need an Asian couple, we need a gay couple, we need a black person, white person, show someone disabled, and we've got your ad. So then when you see these ads, they no longer carry that authenticity. Or, well, they're representing people in some ways, but it doesn't feel authentic to the company. It feels that, you know, that it's like a populist approach. It's like, okay, we
Yeah, and
have to
that
do
was my
this.
biggest concern is what did it say about a business going out and doing that? And a lot of people, for or against certain topics. When I think The Voice is probably a good one. A bunch of organisations come out and said they supported The Voice, and then they got heavily criticised for it afterwards, rightly or wrongly. It would have been the same coming out on the gay marriage topic before. Why was your organisation doing that? Was it because someone within the team was pushing a certain agenda of their own? Or was it because the organisation was pushing an agenda? You start asking questions that they might be good for viral, you know, clips and getting it talked about, which might be your strategy. You often see that.
This is where I see, though, that this is where I think, just for me personally, that these companies are sort of co-opting these social causes in a very disingenuous way, because these social causes in this social media connected landscape has become the new color, or the new, I guess, method for advertising. So before, when it used to be features, it used to be, this icy cold Coca-Cola in summertime. But in today's landscape, where we're all about socialization, social media, now they've sort of taken, okay, now we've got to include another theme under it. It's like about equal representation. And it doesn't matter if you're for or against. I think what matters is this manipulation that's happening under the guise of connectedness and togetherness. When, like, I saw this bus go past the other day, and it was completely rainbow colored, and then just had on the side Pride. Now, I'm not debating whether Pride should be celebrated or not, but then I asked the question, though, is like, why can't a bus just be a bus? Why does it have to move with any sort of social pretenses or political pretenses? Why can't it just be, hey,
a bus?
why can't it just say, this is a bus that's on time? Because that's what I want, a bus that's on time. Or this is the cheapest bus to run ever. And so this is where I personally can, well, because I know how the sausage is made, and I know the types of meetings that happen, and I know the types of check boxes that get ticked off. I know this is just another tick box. Whereas I think for most people, they think, oh no, this big company, they really care about this minority. But the reality is they don't. The reality is they've got a bunch of shareholders. They've got these policies and these frameworks that they've got to abide by. And now they send down the orders, okay, we need to be representing to these groups, and these groups. Why? Because the market will dictate it. And
Again, it's not a right or a wrong thing, but I was under the understanding through education, research, and things, you should reflect your audience that you're actually advertising to. If you put a dog in front of a cat, the cat won't like the dog. So why antagonize unless that's what you're trying to achieve? And you would get, it's like putting an American scene, into and trying to pass it off as Australian, if that makes sense. An actor with an American accent as an Aussie. But just your audience know, in a way, it's disingenuous. um, to do that. And I look, it might be right or wrong, but I'd get asked to put certain demographics into ads, and you go, they're not even going to see this ad. You want to get young people on. You want to reflect young people. You don't want a 60-year-old in the ad.
Mhm. Which makes sense.
What you're asking doesn't make sense.
But there's a twist to that though. Just on that point, is you'll see some ads that are marketed. Let's say they're around fitness or beauty or health. They're marketed at like 60, 65-year-olds, but then they get some like an older 45. So it's their idealized version of them, but in reality, it's not. It's someone completely different. And this is also adding to the lies of advertising.
There is a
glow.
There is a glow, and I found when I was asked to reduce the average age of a cohort or customer base or membership, I found families were the sweet spot. You could portray someone of mum or dad of a family, young family age in it. That's just to say it's kind of that middle part of the demographic. You tended to get, like you say, an older demographic going, I wish I was still kind of young, or I can still relate to that. So you get a glow around the edges, even though your core is a middle. It's like hitting the dartboard in the middle. And we had quite a bit of success in doing that. In fact, one of the organisations you and I work for, it was the first time in its whole existence that it actually lowered its average age when we used that strategy, and we increased the revenue from 100 million to 120 million within 2.5, 3 years, outside of just price rises. Someone might rebut that. That was my recollection. And we grew the staff from 60 to 120 in that same time period. Pretty phenomenal growth by using those tactics, by looking at return on investment, by picking the right time slots, talking to the right audience. I guess that's really my point there.
Can I add something to this?
Virtual signaling.
So this is what sort of got me stirred up, should I say, the other day when I was thinking about advertising. Because I'm out of advertising now, but I have such a long history with it. I still have my PTSD from it. It's in me now. I can't get rid of it. So I deal with it. I'll get some therapy. So what sort of rattled me was where I think advertising has lost its way. I've got 5 points here. The first one being is that creativity has been replaced with metrics. So a lot of this Google ads, like I did some Google ads stuff, just intermittently. And as I was doing it, I was like, this is just pressing buttons, selecting audiences, and this doesn't feel like advertising to me. Look, I get it. I get how it works, and I get the behavioral mechanisms underlying all this. But it's like, this is not a propaganda poster. This is not Uncle Sam wanting you. This is data science. Sure, you can get creative within the metrics, but I think that when you spoke before about this art versus science, I actually think this all comes back to art. And I think science is just the engineering team that help bring that art to life, in my opinion. Another thing I thought about was that insights have been replaced by A/B tests. So this is that whole Steve Jobs thing of, he said that Apple at that time didn't use focus groups because they intrinsically knew what the customer needed before the customer knew. And so that's not something you can A/B test. That's not something you can do market research on. That's an insight that someone has, rightly or wrongly. The market will prove, once it goes out live. So I think a lot of that intuition has been replaced by very safe, very measured products, but also communications. I don't have any examples of those on the top of my head, but also here's just like another thing I just want to quickly add on that is I had cultural literacy is being replaced by templates. So what I mean by this is that this design, whatever you want to call it, whatever it means to you, but let's just say the word design, and now replace that with templates. This is where you sort of step into this Canva world of things, where everything's fast, easy, one click, one subscription, right here, right now. So anyone can use Canva, and Canva's valued at like $30 billion. But there's a difference between a tool and the craftsman using the tool. And so, well, I'd love to hear just your comments on those.
I think the one question you asked me once was, have you ever bought anything off of the internet? And
What was the
outside
answer?
of outside of
Really?
eBay or Amazon, or maybe a shopping platform, I haven't actually bought anything off a Facebook ad or contacted anyone or joined a group, like a sporting activity or something, because I've seen an ad on Facebook or any other social media platform.
What do you think that is?
I don't know. Nothing has swayed me, or even
You're
to
just
go
getting the
out.
wrong ads?
Maybe I am, just nothing I'm interested in. I mean, I've seen car ads and thought, oh gee, if I had the money, I'd like that car. but I've not. I don't think I've ever hit. I've never really hit buy. I think I once bought a PDF about stretching, and it was a very good PDF, and I've still got it. Martial arts.
Wow.
A
But
30-day stretching
but
program.
from your marketing minds, where do you think that the team who, were working on the targeting, where do you think these people who are in market targeting, why aren't they reaching you? Because you're a person, you consume, you look at things. Do you think that they can't find you? Because you buy products, you have things. How come they haven't reached you yet?
Maybe they know that I'm going to go to Officeworks, JB Hi-Fi, or Bunnings. So as long
Okay.
as their product's prime of place at the supermarket, they'll get me. Maybe that's what it is. And I'll actually seek out, like Apple, I'll seek it out to find out what's new and great and whether or not. Then I'll research the product. But yeah, not new products and stuff.
So do
It'd
you
be
think you've
very hard to
been lumped
service.
into a category that's probably more aligned to non-persuadables? So they know they're not going to reach you. So the social media
Maybe.
algorithm's intent is, okay, this person's going to buy anything, but I just need to keep you on this thing to get information from you. And that's the value that's sold off.
Well, stepping back just a little bit, I remember when one of our major newspapers started offering advertising online, and the click-through rate was like 0.015. And when I questioned it, they were like, "Oh yeah, that's normal." So, and you just mentioned it, all these metrics. I think a lot of the metrics are bullshit.
Hmm.
Not that
Like
someone didn't see
impressions.
the ad. Yeah, but it doesn't mean anything. Like,
Hmm.
yes, it was on the screen for 3 seconds. They saw it, therefore it was served. And now I'm going to take your 5 cents because they've seen it, or might even be $10 an ad or something. I worked it out for my Taekwondo class. If you're interested in joining in Lagana, hit me up. Do a bit of Taekwondo. Need a couple of new members. But it's something like $60 to get one person through the door.
Pretty high.
It is pretty high,
Very
isn't
high.
it? And that was using all my talent and skill in 5 minutes to knock up an ad, look at someone else's and go, I like that, that, and that, and I'll copy that and do that and just bang it up. I didn't do A/B testing, Ben.
But
I just
ultimately,
the option was there. I probably should have done, but yeah, it was quite a high cost, and it said, oh, several thousand, 20,000 people saw it, but it seems like a really low return. We're back in the day. If you did a mailbox drop, 1 in 100 people would contact you. That was a pretty good stat.
mm.
Yeah, so I wonder if some of the sales, marketing, impression numbers and those sorts of stats are just there to give you a false sense in a way.
It's
You
to
know,
sell the value to the clients to say, hey, look, we've done some work. Because I've had clients, well, not clients, but sort of friends who have been clients of other companies. And I said, oh, how did your advertising go? And they talk about all these metrics, impressions, and I was like, okay, that's cool. There are numbers. One had like 40,000 impressions. And, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that doesn't mean anything. The only thing that matters is,
I'm
oh,
always like, how
how
much
much
did you
did you
actually
sell?
sell?
Exactly.
Yeah. And
And
then
like
for all
they
those
took,
dollars you spent, how much was that one sale? Did that one sale cost you?
yeah, and they talk about all these things like, okay, well, we've got to measure the conversions. We'll measure the conversions happening on this page, on this form, and on this phone number, and we'll see where all the activity is flowing, and we'll be able to have a real picture. It's like, that's just noise. It's nonsense. You're paying for an analytical waste of time. Sure, it's helpful. I think it's helpful at the extreme scales. Like if you're doing, millions and millions of dollars of business let's say per month. Sure, you want to know, you want to optimize how that's all flowing through to give the best customer experience also, but to know where the money's coming from and where it's going. But just at like regular medium-sized business scales, I think that's absolute overkill. Because ultimately it's like, okay, when did your campaigns go out? Okay, now let's look at the finances and let's look, is there a bump there? If there's no bump and it's just flatlined, or if it's dropped, okay, the advertising's not working. I think it's that simple. And then I think
Yeah.
that's
If
where it goes
phone
back to
calls
people.
don't increase, if website numbers don't increase and sales don't increase,
Yeah.
sales don't increase,
Yeah. Like who cares where
it's
it comes
fake.
from? Who cares if it's come from one post, if it's come from a campaign, or if it's come from a team cold calling, door knocking, whatever. If there's a bump when you start the campaign, then it's working. If there's no bump, um, and so this is it's not a hatred, but this is where I see that the advertising world, which I loved to begin with, this is where I feel like it's been co-opted by um, data centric people and analytical people, which I think they're an important part of the ecosystem. But I don't think they should be leading the charge from a sales or a creative point of view, which I think is what's happening. And I think that's why we've got this move away from people who just hate ads because they feel so measured. They look beautiful, sure,
Yeah.
but they're
Well, I think it
meaningless.
stops people putting up a outdoor billboard because they'd rather see how many people looked at the ad,
Mm.
so on a digital platform. But, if I gave you a $2 pen with my logo and phone number on it, and one day you go, oh, I'm going to call that person, I've only paid $2 for the pen, but because it doesn't have the stats and the traceability and stuff, a lot of these people would go, no, don't do the pen. Put $2 into Facebook. Well, you can't even buy an ad for $2 on Facebook. You know, uh, I think you get too focused on the numbers and you lose what could be an effective campaign. And that's why a lot of people get funny about brand campaigns because they don't understand that extra value that the idea of branding, you do some things for the sake of doing them, not because they give you instant return.
Well, I've,
Um,
I've got a point here, which I think you sort of brought up is I don't hate analytics at all. In fact, I love it, but I do hate it leading the charge. And what I think is analytics equals risk aversion because you can measure something and say, oh, by our projections, this message is going to drop. Whereas sometimes, and this is where counterculture comes in, um, this is where those music artists, let's say like a Nirvana, for example, from the 90s, something that was so different to the 80s hair metal and the 80s like pop, it was so left of field, so wrong, not even technically that great. But then it's just struck a chord, not because for its artistic technical merit, but because the the tide and the wave of the culture was so sick of that neon glow of the 80s and the hairspray that they were just tired of it. And so as a pendulum started to swing the other way, on the other side of that pendulum swing was Nirvana. Now analytics isn't going to project that. That's where this I think this is where bringing the artist, and I use artist quote unquote more so in the sense of uh, thinking differently. It's like not just someone who can draw, but thinking like an artist, thinking about, I think like the best creative, I think the best work can come from when you start it with the sentence, oh, do you know what would be really cool? Dot, dot, dot. Whatever comes next, at least if it's not right, it's going to be interesting. Whereas if you start it with,
If you have a template,
do you know what? Yeah, exactly. If you start it with, in template. So, and I think why this conversation is prescient, especially for both of us, is that now we're in this AI world where all of this beautiful work, technically beautiful work, can be produced, at a click of a prompt. But then it goes back to, okay, well, what's leading this? If we go through this like Google Analytics mentality to drive all of this, then we've got this slop. We've got, well, we don't just have slop. There's a new type of slop that I've sort of come to me, and that's influencer slop, which is just as bad as AI slop. So
I was
you'll be
just
what?
going to mention that actually.
Yep.
But,
It's like
there are
everybody's an
certain
influencer.
influencers I trust, like Marquis Brown, because I followed him for years when he was like you and I. He was just in front of a dodgy camera
Yep.
at home, and he's like a 12-year-old explaining the product.
Yep.
And he's never wavered from his integrity. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's a great point.
But I do like the influencers for the right ones, but their influencers slot and disingenuous. So one of the organisations you and I worked with, that was kind of the rage at the time. You have to get influencers. And then when you talk to them, they only really wanted to engage based on the dollars and what they were going to get out of it. They didn't actually want to hear about the great work that your organisation did.
Mm-hmm.
It was more based on, my daughter's watching this person who promotes these things. Can you make sure you get them on to promote our product, even if it didn't fit the product?
But this is the whole thing. So I think there are different types of influencers. Let's say the Marquez or what's his name, MBK, whatever his YouTube handle is.
Unbox Therapy is another one I enjoy.
So I think they're at that top tier, and I think they have that authentic, natural message that comes through, and I think that's how you get to that echelon. But then go down the ladder a little bit. The medium ones, they're who they are, but it's this sort of lower tier, and I'll say more regionally based. So you might have someone who has like 10,000 followers, 10 to 20,000 followers in, let's say, Tasmania or regional Victoria. And so a local company, like a local sauna, has just opened up, and they need someone to tap into the zeitgeist of this little town. And what I notice is that these lower level people, influencers, they follow the tropes, the patterns, the templates of what these bigger people are doing, but it comes out so
on a
low
local
rent
scale. Yeah. Yep.
That it just feels like rubbish, because it's no longer about technique. It's no longer about crafting, eloquent communication. It's no longer about understanding who the audience are. It's no longer about building a craft. It is just like this human version of AI slop. And so when you have these competing or these complementary forces to each other, AI slop and influencer slop, then you sort of sit here as a consumer and you're like, it's all rubbish. But then after a while, it's like this slow boiling of the frog, where it's like, where we used to have really high standards for great messaging, and really high standards for great imagery and a respect for the audience, it's now just this low bar. Okay, someone's got a phone. They've got like their little Rode mic that they put up here because everybody does that. And,
oh, yeah, gosh. Yeah.
And then they say something, blah, 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 fast cuts, done. And it's like, it's really a race to the bottom. And I don't know what's below the bottom, but well, yeah. And so that's advertising in a nutshell to me. And it just doesn't make being a consumer a very pleasurable experience. Like, they want our money. People love buying things. Everybody loves buying. There's nothing wrong with buying things. But it's the way that they get their product features and services and messages to us. It's just getting, I believe it's getting killed. Now, I'm probably wrong on a lot of things. I'm probably wrong on the amount of sales. The sales are probably going through the roof. But just as someone who just wants to have a rich experience in life, this is Black Mirror episode watching TV, or even
And
just anywhere.
I love a product where the people who make the product or deliver the product care.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
you can
Like,
feel it.
even it doesn't have to be a great product either, but you know, whether it's the story around Dyson or um, Apple, or or sometimes they put together a product and you just go, yeah, it's been made for me. It's been made for the user. The Apple turns on, it just works. And it's true. I watched something the other day and they got the latest Windows thing and it had to update 6 times and it took 20 minutes. They turned the Apple on and all they had to do was put in their Apple ID and away they went. When a product is made like that, I want to hear that story. I want to see the product. And I might pay a little bit more for it because I know that someone has put some care and attention to detail and thought about the user, how the user's going to use it and pick it up and play with it or engage with it. I want to discover those products. But I don't think you see those. You don't see it in the same way anymore. But interestingly, you mentioned it. I did see there's a setting coming up. I think it's in TikTok or one of the platforms. You can go in your preferences and turn off AI. You can filter out AI made content, interestingly, which I thought was an interesting feature to release.
It's funny how far we've come with this from where we started 6 months ago to it's been quite a roller coaster and a roller coaster to witness. I thought, like, following this advertising, a talk rant, I thought, is there some deeper philosophical talking points to pull from this? So just like based on the influencer stuff, I had things around. So this is around influence, and the note I had was that algorithms, where insight, creativity, and intuition have been replaced by algorithms. So now we're starting to see these algorithms steer behavior by reinforcing what has already worked, because a lot of this analytical data is historical. It's like what has happened to project what's going to happen next. Whether it's up or down on the graph, it's to figure out, okay, we're
I
using
don't
this.
think it's the thing that works. It's the insight. It's the intuitive insight about what's next, as you say.
Exactly. And this goes to Nietzsche's idea of herd mentality. And that's the idea that, like, these algorithms, they just amplify the herd rather than the individual will. So, and a classic example of this is for me with music and Spotify.
Mm.
I have a really varied taste, and I have my kids using my Spotify as well. And so, where I'm listening to, let's say, heavy metal, and then they've got Wiggles playing, and then all these other kids' things, and then for some reason, whatever, I'll listen to something else. I might listen to a pop song. Now it's trying to look at that and average, okay, what group do I belong in? This is quite a diverse person. So here's the next song I'm going to give you. And it's so far left of field. It's no longer about having a radio DJ who can, curate based upon human intuition, based upon just likes, taste. I think taste is a big thing that algorithms don't have. Analytics doesn't have taste. Artists have taste, and so this is where these algorithms are amplifying just populist ideas, and when we see this play out in politics, we see this play out in political topics, a la the stadium. You can. It's like this thing, the echo chamber. It just reinforces what the person wants to hear rather than what the full width of information there is. What do you think about the algorithms?
The algorithm actually served me up something different the other day.
Okay.
I don't know if it's because I've been following AI music. You triggered me when you talked about that, the AI music. I'd been following, I think one of the biggest podcasters in the world had been playing some 50 Cent.
Okay.
Trying
Yep. I know this one. Joe Rogan.
to, yeah. Oh,
Yes.
well, good guess.
It's become a
Didn't.
internet meme now. Whenever you watch a Joe Rogan episode on YouTube, it'll have underneath the top comment will be, "Wait till he shows him the AI 50 Cent song," and inevitably it happens. It's funny. I do like memes.
But I think there's one for us, and it's the because you've got kids, you might appreciate it. The Baby Shark
Yes,
song,
yes, I know that.
done
It's
as a
on,
1920s swing song or something. So get onto YouTube, people, and Google that one. It was hilarious.
it's so catchy.
But again, that's been driven by human taste and pushing the AI in a direction, not AI itself. I always come back to this. It turns things vanilla.
Yes.
It the same.
Well, the average is another way of saying vanilla. Any
Perhaps it
average
is.
point.
It is just the average thing that works.
Yeah.
And then it pumps it out. But it also has that. I can't remember that correct term, but it's got that predictive text feature. Where instead of using this word, it has a random word it throws in. It's kind of that's not creativity either. In a way, we don't just. I don't think we always just randomly throw something in when we're creating. We go, this works because it links with that.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? You often go, I need to do this little tweak and put that in there because it creates a subconscious. You get it subconsciously, instantly if we put the toy in there, versus having something sterile in the background.
Mm-hmm.
There's just little things you often do when you're creating, particularly like imagery, where you think, hang on a minute, if there's something a different angle or it means something to people, not I'm just going to randomly chuck in a random thing into the background, a big Statue of the Liberty in the background, because it's just the X factor, random number.
It's something different.
It's put in there because it would mean something to the image. It might be random if you're looking at it from a data perspective, but from a human perspective, it's like, oh no, he's put that Statue of Liberty in there because that kid wants to go to America and go to Disneyland. There's a connection or a link there. It might be vague or it might be one you necessarily wouldn't pick up instantly, but that's why you put it in there.
And sometimes it's like been counterintuitive. I remember I did one commercial, and I think you remember this. The budget was about 150 grand, where the client's previous budget early in the year was $10,000. So we went all in, and for some reason, maybe it was just irony or was it an inside joke, but we decided not to do any call to actions, no web address, and just have a logo at the end. And it's like, well, how can you do that? And it's like, yeah, because I know the rules and I know the rhythm of what makes an ad. But what we wanted to sell at this organization is this is not about making stock ads and, just stock creative. This is about trying something different. And it's like, but the when you sort of look at that creative before it happens, it's like, well, it's going to get people aren't going to like it. They don't know. This doesn't make sense. Why are we going to do this? But then you build it into the context of the environment. So this is when that first Star Wars, the last, the most recent ones, the very first one of those came out. I can't remember what it's called, but it came out. So we knew that, okay, let's get this into a cinema. This should be cinematic. So let's design this. Let's shoot this cinematically, and let's go into that landscape for an ad. This was a 90-second ad too. Well, no, actually, it was originally going to be a 15, 30-second ad just on TV. And I said, no, everyone's used to the rhythm of 15 and 30. Let's go 90. Let's make this a short story type thing.
Yeah.
And then, so this entire thing was just designed to play in front of Star Wars. And so when we went in to talk to the cinema people, I think they were Val Morgan at the time.
Mm-hmm.
we said, I don't want this to play with, Ma and Pa's local milk bar ads at the front. I want this to play before the movie. Like, I want to be this, insert this next to Coca-Cola, to whatever bank, the big ones. And funnily enough, they did. And not because you're not allowed to. It's just because I asked. I said, we want this to be the last one. They said, okay. And so, and they did it.
Yep.
And so one of the accountants for this organization, he was a very, shirt and tie and very straight and not creative. And I don't mean that derogatorily. I think he's an accountant. He didn't like the ads. No one liked the ad. None of the suits liked the ad. But when he sat in the cinema to go see Star Wars, he came back and he said, I got it. I got what you're trying to do, because he was in that environment. He was in a packed cinema. Yeah, he didn't know what the ad was for, but he felt something from it. And so this is where
and
this
wasn't
balance of
that always
analytics,
something you're trying to convey was feeling? You're always trying to convey feeling.
because you can't rationalize it, because you can't chart it on a spreadsheet and say feeling X equals sales Y. It doesn't work. Well, you can if you can explain it. If you can sell the story of it, absolutely you can get people on board. But also we've seen, like, let's not poo-poo on the accountants, but you can also see the other side of things where the creatives go too far, too far one way. They completely miss the point of, okay, at the end of the day, just go sell a product. An example of this lately is, have you seen the new Jaguar ads that came about 6 months ago?
It's not ringing a bell.
So this is something really interesting to look at. And so Jaguar have always been known as like let's say something of the Jeremy Clarkson type crowd, the older gentleman with lots of money and very refined tastes, drinks an expensive bottle of scotch and drives a Jag to their weekend home, like that. But what they realize is that, that's fine. But when that crowd die out, who's going to replace that boy? Because the new gentleman of this generation isn't about that. That's granddad. They're about other things. So what they did is they came out and they completely rebranded, redesigned the type of vehicles that they do, under the principles of DEI, like the diversity, equity. I don't know. What's the DEI? Diversity. I can't remember what the E stands for. And inclusiveness, that type of thing. Basically, equality. That's the one. Exactly. So they came under those principles. So they had very sort of androgynous, masculine, feminine, heterosexual, bisexual, also the colors of the rainbow into this car and this brand, because I guess they go back to that brief of, like, they just want to make people feel something, whether they wanted to make it feel rebellious or to feel in touch, whatever. You'd have to have that ad and have a look at the ad to see for yourself. But what generally came out was, like, just people didn't like it because it felt contrived. It felt like it was trying too hard to be edgy or too hard to be, like, in your face. And so this is that idea where the artist can go too far, or they don't get that right sensibility. And I think that comes back to taste, which is really hard to quantify. I don't think it actually can be quantified. After the fact, it can.
It's a hard one to sell at the boardroom table too. Why are you doing this? Because we want to convey a feeling. I remember having to put together, research so that people would understand why I wanted a mum and a grandmother in a shot of a certain age, because that, all the research, and it's kind of it seems like common sense, but you have to explain it to people that, and it's probably true of men too, but women will, once they've had kids or start a family, they tend to start relating back to their parents again, particularly mum.
Yeah, of course.
And maybe the way that they were doing things and why they raised their kids the way that they did.
Yeah.
And so the relationships get closer. And therefore, to put that relationship into an ad was a good idea because you were tapping into that sense and feeling of the relationship between the two. So it always sort of, it was strange to have to justify it by putting it into a written paper and provide research and evidence that this was the case and a good reason to do it. But I do remember one occasion that you or I might have, it was common to put the website address on a piece of collateral, and we just went, no, you'll just Google it. And the compliance person just like, but you can't drop the web address from the bottom. And I'm like, yeah, you can. You just Google it. And it comes up.
When they say you can't do it, it's like, yeah, you can. You just you just delete that layer and it's gone.
It's gone.
And then their mind just goes.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really extreme case, where you kind of go the other, minutia. It's a tiny example of probably what you're alluding to. But, it was a bit counter at the time. Everybody was, it was almost like the idea of just put the logo, not the word, onto people's clothing. And it was like, you can do that. Yeah, you just drop the words and it's just like the Nike swoosh. It's like, yeah, but we're not big enough for people to know who we are. It's like, yeah, no, they'll get it. It's like a concept.
It's that thing though. It's like, it's all about like that impression. It's like make the impression that you're as big as Nike by doing what Nike do. And then people are like, this is aligned like that. And suddenly it has this brand halo effect. And
I think you're absolutely right. You got to, I remember getting asked to do small brand ads for a small insurance company. And it was like, it won't work. Nobody wants to be, it's like being part of a small bank that suddenly might not be able to give you your money back.
Yes.
You don't want to be part of it. You need that feeling of large size that you're going to get paid back out and that you can trust the money is there. Even if the logic actually is, well, the big people won't give you the payout or the insurance claim typically anyway.
And it's funny pulling and pushing against those perceptions because we had like a frozen pizza just from the supermarket. It was like $2.99. So real, just absolute frozen shit in a box.
Yeah.
And it's funny. So, this comes from a massive factory where they just been pumped out like widgets in a factory and
pizza widget.
Yeah, pizza widgets. But then you look at the box and this is what I love about advertising. I really do. And the box is like, it's like mar and pars, exquisite pizza cuisine. It would be like in Italian fonts, and it'll have like this Italian sort of traditional market cart feel.
Yeah,
with like the Italian flag and some herbs and some garlic and all this illustration. And it's like, so the big companies, some companies go the other way, where there's this massive grey machine to feel quite human. And then these smaller things that are, sort of sticky taped together then come out appearing like this high gloss finish. And sometimes both companies get caught out, but it's funny that, advertising isn't about telling the truth. It's about creating the truth. And then you just sort of buy it, We like to, well, I guess what is that? What is that in us that like, because beyond the label, that this is, what it is really. But
look, I might be being overcritical of the people who want to go down that path, but of say a small, cheap and cheerful ad that doesn't really portray the things that you need it to it might work. Like it's like going down a boutique angle. The gourmet pizza doesn't have to be made by the big chain, even if it is still going through a factory. You just make it a gourmet looking box, and you go from a thick crust to a thin crust, and you call it whatever the current term is for wood-fired pizza.
Or there's like sourdough now, and it's all this fancy artisan stuff, but in reality, it's not. So I don't think, maybe advertising's never been about the truth. It's always been about getting people to feel something, whether it's true or not. Because no one has said that this representation of Italian culture is supposed to be the truth, but and there's nothing wrong
Another
with it.
one there is the Chemist Warehouse. A
Yes.
lot of people are like, well, if you want to make it feel cheap, make it look cheap,
Yes.
even if it's and it's professionally done. The cheapness is professionally done.
Yeah, when you walk in there, it's really interesting. It's very overwhelming. There's sensory. I was going to say a word, but I won't say that one. But it's sensory overload on uh, every facet, every dimension. From the sounds, like you've got this shitty music playing. You've got these like video displays that are just spouting some nonsense. Visual overload in terms of the fonts, the colors. Every product has a ticket on it with the price cut down, and so the rows are just these tickets on everything as well. But this is designed in such a way that this works. It feels cheap. Bunnings, exactly the same thing. You know, yeah, it's in a warehouse, but it's not cheap.
Just
No,
gives you the impression it might be cheap.
yeah, you just kind of walk in there as like dumb idiots, like, oh, this is cheap, cool. And then poor old mom and pa hardware stores who may have been cheaper don't last because they don't have necessarily the skills nor the budgets to sell the message. Because these messages aren't necessarily cheap to create, even though they look cheap. They're designed by very smart people to sort of figure out what are the patterns that people recognize. How do we play around with this behavioral communication? How do we shepherd people in a direction? And that takes a lot of
Yeah,
research
how do
and
we create a loss leader?
yeah,
Put
that
some products in there that
takes
make
a
it
lot of
look cheap.
strategy to think like that. So Bunnings isn't by accident; it's very intentional and at a really high level. Um, yeah. So to round out this conversation, I've got the next point of like, what's next for advertising? So if we're in this AI slop world and this influencer slop, because these big companies are also doing this influencer slop as well. What I see happening next, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts, is like a return to clarity and taste and cultural meaning. So when a Coca-Cola ad actually meant something, like it made you feel something that was not necessarily being nostalgic of like, oh, back in our day, this is what an ad felt like, but rather
Did we
this.
talk about the new Coke ad last
I
time?
haven't seen it yet. I I'm
Oh,
off ads, but I'd be here
well, I
interested to.
looked at it
Yeah.
for the purposes of because we are in this space. I went and had a look at it, and to be honest, the work that you and I have done without budget is actually probably better than what they produced.
Even from a strategic point of view. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, recommend you go watch it. It still
Check
has
it out.
elements where you feel like the truck's not rolling with the right physics.
Oh, this
Um,
is the AI generated, like the polar bear one, the Christmas one.
yeah, the new
Yes.
Christmas ad. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
I did hear
hand
about
of
that.
Santa Claus looks too young. I mean, we could probably play it on the show here and not get done for copyright because it's an ad. Is that right?
Or we could claim that they're a sponsor.
Yeah. Well,
Coke want to sponsor us, by the way. We're open.
hit us up after we just bagged you. Great ad. Well done for using AI.
Our hearts and our bank accounts are open.
We're good influencers. Um, yeah, no, go have a look at it. I think after one look, and I didn't really have any expectations, but I went, oh yeah, it's definitely AI generated.
Yeah, no,
And their
that was their
apologies.
brief, and that's how they came out, and they were selling that this is like a big ticket AI generated ad. But what I see happening for what's next is, I think, taste, however you want to, imagine that, becomes a new scarcity in a world of infinite output. So yes, everybody can produce anything they want, but I think it's the taster makers that are going to be able to come in. We're using the same tools and cut through the noise. Hopefully, fingers crossed. And I think that automation, it's going to handle the grunt work so that the humans can focus on insights. I really do believe that, because this AI slop, it's here, but it's not going to overrun everything, because ultimately the free market decides. Because as you mentioned before, where there's a button to turn off AI generated content, the platforms don't care about, what techniques the advertisers are using. What they care about is the audience and the people being on their platform spend as much time. So people start disengaging, they're going to shut that shit down really quickly. Even ban it if it starts to affect the bottom line. So
Isn't
I
that
think
interesting that they actually do have a driver in terms of keeping people on the platform, people
yes,
creating content on that platform? Because they're very quick to stand away, demonetize people. So that it's good that there is a driver out there to us, the audience, the consumer. It's a very free market, isn't it?
capitalism. So what do you think's next? If you were just to throw a dart.
I hope optimistically you're right, and unoptimistically doom and gloom. I think it's for advertising. It's how are you going to reach people into the future. Most of what people do is now manipulating algorithms, whether it's an algorithm on a social media platform, an algorithm in a search engine. They're trying to manipulate algorithms so that their content surfaces. And that's it. That's the main game. Like you said, there are certain things that people will do that manipulate the algorithm. Whether it's a thumbnail image that people react to and are attracted to and click on, which then helps the algorithm go, oh, that's people like that and that's interesting. There's multiple ways they're probably manipulating the algorithm.
Big boobs.
And that actually seems to be the goal.
I said big boobs.
Yeah. Now, that's all I'm going to see in my feed, thank God. It's not a bad problem to have. But, yeah, it's algorithm manipulation, which I don't pretend to understand, although sometimes I manage to do it myself. People engage with the content, you get them to share it. There's certain things you can do to get the algorithm to notice it, and then it spreads. But that's it's people being manipulative. It's not because it's good taste or the best thing out there. And that makes me sad. And I think we'll only continue to see that. I don't think anyone will fix it anytime soon.
Do you think it's a
And
gift?
that idea of opposites, like the idea of manipulating, is because the content is outrageous and it's the extreme end of something. So therefore, people are attracted to it, and therefore the algorithm promotes it.
Do you think it's a gift though,
Yeah.
that when everything is bland and homogenized, that it gives way to taste and an audience appetite for good taste?
I hope it can give way. I just don't know how it's going to give way when something that has been well thought out in comparison, something that is more attuned to what people want to consume, is out there, but it's not conforming to the algorithm.
Right. So it might not even surface. Just like this podcast. Might not
just
surface.
like this podcast. Quality content, great hosts, one good guest so far. Hopefully we'll get a couple. We've got a couple more actually lined up, ladies and gentlemen.
Excellent.
Stay tuned. Hopefully next week we'll lock those guys away, and the conversation will get more interesting. But if it's not surface and it's everything you say it is, what's the point? How are you going to get? How's the average person who does something good going to get the cut through if there's so many people just producing slop and manipulating the algorithms? I just see more of the same being produced.
It's a great question to end on, because I think that question is the only way you can solve it. Is that how? Because there are genuine companies with genuine people that need to hit genuine audiences in authentic ways. So
I actually think, and we used to do it by cost per thousand, talking of stats again, but having working in farmland and only having farmers as members, I used to be like, oh, what's the cost per thousand? That's all I really care about. And maybe it's right with the right product, because you just want to advertise to everyone and get as many as you can. You're not really worried about it's a large numbers game. The more numbers you can hit, the more conversions you're going to get. But there's another audience where if you only want to talk to farmers, you're going to pay a higher price, but the quality's there. And that's a mind shift in marketers and advertisers, I think, in a way too, that if they've got a product for that audience, then you're better off advertising directly into an audience that is that, not a broad audience, and trying to get a low cost per thousand. You probably want a high cost per thousand, because every single one of that 1,000 people is actually a farmer in this case.
Yes.
Rather than one person in that 1,000 being a farmer, but it was it was a low cost. That's a bit of a mind shift for paid advertising. For organic stuff, bit disillusioned. And often that's why I'll spend half the time just continually scrolling, because I'm looking for something a little bit different, but I'm probably some weird way training the algorithm to just keep delivering the same shit. But it's also why I like jumping on the wife's account. We've talked about this before. You jump on someone else's account, suddenly it's interesting because you're seeing stuff that the algorithm's not surfacing for you. So there almost needs to be a switch where you can just switch up the algorithm to stop serving the same thing, to change momentarily how it's and retest the assumptions, whatever's going on, that you like this thing consistently. Yeah, but I mean that. But again, these big companies control the platforms, rightly or wrongly, and their power is quite consuming, quite powerful when they can manipulate search results. They can stop Ben and Grayson just appearing in search, and they can put negative articles up rather than positive articles up. And they manipulate it for political reasons or self-interest or whatever it might be. It's a long way from being a fair and level playing field.
And I think this is it goes back to identity. And I think this is why personal identity and sovereignty is such an interesting topic to pull from this, is because with these recommendation algorithms and these systems shaping choices and then reinforcing these identity loops. So I'll admit it, I've listened to Dua Lipa, but I know it's controversial. We should edit this out. I just put a bleep.
Just put a bleep.
Yep. But anyway, I've listened to a song or two, but the algorithm has taken that as okay, well, here's the entire back catalogue. Let's just insert this over your music choice. And so this becomes a thing, this idea of these, the earworms, that idea that you get a song stuck in your head, not necessarily from because you like it, but just from familiarity, like jingles from ads as another thing. And so with these recommendation systems, we risk outsourcing choices to these systems, then pretending that they are our own. So have I become the biggest Dua Lipa fan? Yeah, well, who knows? Maybe, yes. I'm on the fan club. But because that constant exposure, it's saying, oh, okay, you've listened to this because I've given you more of this in your playlist. Okay, I'm going to give you more of that, more of that, more of that. And now you're the world's biggest fan. And it's well, what was that my choice? Was that my expression of free will? Or is that just this algorithm, thinking, categorizing me as that, and now it's just blah, you can take it all. So it's a strange time for advertising. I think it's a time where it needs to get. It's going to have it's going to have its renaissance moment, because it has to. I think this analytical, algorithmic methodology has it's optimizing and it's optimizing on itself, but I think it can only optimize down to a single point, the singularity of advertising, I guess. Then
I think it's
stale and
really
boring.
hard where you're not plastered in front of a big screen and it's in front of you. The moment it's on a small device, you can put that device down and go and get a cup of tea while you can't skip the ad. If you can skip the ad, how many people just skip the ad?
Yes, and you can
Exactly. And you just sit there and you accept it and you have to watch it. Those days are gone
go on.
with small mobile devices. And I think the small mobile devices then teach you on the big screen to turn away and play with your phone while the ad's on. So,
Yeah.
Poor old advertisers have got a way to go. Maybe you have to pay people to watch your ads.
Here's another interest. Before we finish up, here's another interesting stat that I sort of pulled the other day. I was going through Seek, and I was pulling out all of the graphic design jobs, advertising-based jobs, and not video content producers because they come into social media, but sort of video editing in more traditional mediums. What I've noticed is from, anecdotally a couple of years ago, the salary range has dropped significantly. So where some of these lower mid-level would be around 80 or 90, in metropolitan areas too, they've dropped down to like 65 to 70. And a lot of the producers have also dropped down to the sort of lower hundreds for what fields would have been, sort of adjusted, for 10 years ago, would have been much, much, much higher. But what I've noticed is like social media content creators have bumped up, over 120. And it's not based upon technique. This is based upon this analytical method. It's based upon getting your social media schedules out, even just being able to use the simple app tools for video editing, not, the Adobe Premieres, not anything fancy. They seem to be much, much higher. So it's definitely changed a lot because I remember when I studied graphic design, I was in the era where it was all computer, but our teachers were of the era when it used to be the big drawing and the drafting tables. It used to be, what's it called, lithography. This is how they did the newspapers.
Printing.
Exactly. And they had to do typesetting like manually. And they'd have to like cut bits of things out and then sort of scan them. I don't really know. And then that would go to print. So what they brought to us education wise was they brought us the deeper fundamentals of, okay, well, you space this like this and this because coming from this analog process. So that translated into the digital world, which was my generation. So we had a lot of technique and still a lot of that craftsmanship built in. But now fast forward 20 years later, where everything is just now, a lot of that technical, and I think craftsmanship it's the honor of aesthetics and beauty, and that the world doesn't have to be so bland. It can be beautiful at the same time as being functional, where now it's just all high function. And
we're really bouncing between the overload and the obsolete.
Yes.
It's really crazy. I mean, I've seen TikTok or videos on YouTube, one of the two, of graphic designers complaining that the work's drying up, and they're getting fewer jobs and being paid less. It's an interesting observation you make.
Yeah. Well, I think we could keep talking about advertising. I've got like 20 years of stories to go through. Maybe we probably have to do more of these because I need to vent. I don't know about you. I need to get all this out.
Let's get a marketer on or someone eventually, and we can talk to them about where things are going.
We should have an influencer and then more of a traditional marketing person.
Yeah, reach out if you're an influencer. We want to talk to you.
Yeah, I don't think what they're doing is wrong. I think what they're doing is working within the systems that they've inherited, which is this algorithmic based landscape. Because to do it otherwise, it's the free market deciding it just doesn't cut through.
Algorithmic landscape.
Yeah. So I think that's it for this discussion. Stay tuned.
We'll drop some wisdom.
All right, Grayson. Good chat. Thanks again.
See you, Ben.